pretty extraordinary, Scott, some of the numbers that I've been reading out of the Gold Coast in particular, that $1 billion was wiped off its revenue in the last quarter. I mean, that kind of stuff is staggering, and surely that can't go for much longer.
Yeah, I think that's right, Pete. You think about the dollar value of that for businesses. For the workers, of course, that will otherwise be employed in those industries that are simply not working right now. Those local economies that are, and Queensland is probably the most affected here, that are really vulnerable to domestic tourism, but domestic tourism from interstate. That's been the really big one. Of course, we've been able to travel around different states of Australia over the last 18 months from time to time when lockdowns haven't been enforced. So plenty of intra-state travel, but interstate travel has been the real challenge. And you think about the theme parks, the beaches, the hotels on the Gold Coast, even up to Cairns, Townsville, the Daintree, that whole section of coast really is a tourist mecca for not only Queenslanders but Australians from around the country. Of course, international tourists as well. But as you say, $1 billion worth of impact on the Gold Coast specifically, and it makes sense. That's where a lot of us would go for Christmas holidays, for summer holidays, and that's why I think those tourism operators are so concerned. They're pleased to see New South Wales with a path out of lockdown, but if the border stays closed, not going to make much difference for those guys, unfortunately.
Let's get on to net zero and the government crab walking towards some kind of commitment, although it's going to depend on what the Nationals do, because they're not exactly... They don't exactly have their arms open when it comes to this, but businesses so far welcomed it, Scott.
Yeah, look, crab walks are created word. I might steal that one, Pete. Yes, businesses are very keen to see it. They've been calling for it for quite a while, and for reasons political and other, the government's elected not thus far to make those sort of commitments. But with the Treasurer and the Prime Minister out recently, even Deputy Prime Minister and Nationals leader Barnaby Joyce coming out only last week and saying, look, it might be good for farmers if it's done the right way. So it does seem like the doors are opening slightly for that commitment. States have already done it. Businesses have been demanding it for a very, very long time. Energy generators in particular are looking for it as well. So that's the real, I think, opportunity. And of course, some pressure from Europe and from US, potentially part of the subs deal, part of the Quad conversations. We're not sure what's going on behind closed doors, but that's certainly part of the conversation.
Okay, insurance premiums rising more than 10% after a year of natural disasters, Scott.
Yeah, this is tough. Up to 14%. The average home and contents policy, $500,000 house, $50,000 in contents, up 14% year on year. And you're right, it's those natural disasters that have pushed it up. It's not bad enough that we've had bushfires and floods and COVID and everything else. Insurers looking around saying, guys, this is costing us a small fortune. We're going to have to start to put these up. It does go back to some degree, of course, to the climate change conversation. But the bottom line is wages aren't going up, inflation's not going up, and yet insurance premiums up 10 to 14% in many parts of Australia, even higher in some parts, by the way, some small parts that are more impacted than others. A very, very tough time for homeowners who are frankly looking at those very large bills and saying, hang on, I'm not getting paid more and nothing else is going up, and yet my insurance is going up 14%.
Okay, and let's wrap up with Priceline, the pharmacy owner API. It's attracting a second bidder as Sigma enters the race with Wesfarmers.
You'll love to see that if you're an API shareholder. There's nothing better that if you're a shareholder of a takeover target than an auction. And so you've got Wesfarmers who lobbed a $760-odd million bid. Sigma topped that yesterday with $773 million. We'll remains to be seen how long this goes on. Of course, Wesfarmers are a relatively financial or trade buyer. Sigma's got real skin in the game here because this is a very over-serviced sector. There's 3 large pharmaceutical wholesalers, and there's simply not enough business for all of them. And so the returns have been reasonably ordinary for a very long time in this space. If Sigma can get the deal, and importantly, if the ACCC sign it off, and I think that still needs to be done, then you will see 3 become 2, and that probably improves the financials meaningfully for those in the space. Others like EBOS, the third player, would be very keen to see that happen. A bit more rationality in the sector, a bit less overcapacity. Probably good news for them, not great news for pharmacists, who I'm sure would rather see 3 remain.
Yeah. Okay, Scott, good to see you. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Pete.